Welcome to Writer's Block. I'm Rex. He's Lav. I am on location in Lav. Can you hear the wind? Can you? Blowing
I can.
across the mic?
It is buffeting. It is buffeting your mic.
You can see the umbrella moving back and forth. It sets the stage perfectly with what we're going to talk about. And it was a difficult Sunday at Bay Hill. Some might call it, I don't know, Bloody Sunday. That might be too hard. And we're coming off a week that was very, very difficult at the Honda Classic on top of that. And then we're going to TPC Sawgrass in a week. So my question to you is very, very simple. On the PGA Tour, how hard is too hard?
Bay Hill on the weekend is hard for the sake of being hard. I think PGA National is legitimately a difficult golf course. I think TPC Sawgrass is a difficult golf course in kind of a tricky sense. I think the Innisbrook Resort for the Valspar Championship is just a very good test of golf. Bay Hill is a little bit tricked up. The rough obviously has not been cut seemingly for weeks. If you missed some fairways, it was guaranteed bogey. And you had just some circumstances with the weather where it played firm and fast, and the greens were extremely hard to hold, even with short irons, as we were seeing with Billy Horschel in that final round. Was it too tough? I don't know. If you had 10 to 15 weeks of this throughout the course of the year, I would think it's a little bit overboard. I'm okay with it. Clearly, the field assembled here knew what they were going to be getting into, and still 6 of the top 10 players in the world turned up as kind of the tune-up event for the Players' Championship. I didn't think it was too hard. And in fact, last year at this very golf course, you had fewer players shoot around in the 60s in the final round, 3 as opposed to 4 this Sunday.
You've been here before for this. I'm so bummed. I'm missing the vodka toast right now for the champion, Scottie Scheffler.
You're a big vodka guy. I'm not a huge vodka guy. To be honest, I'm not a huge clear liquor guy.
It's Kettle One. It's Kettle One. It's the good stuff.
Give me bourbon all day long.
Only the good stuff for the king. I don't know if too hard is the answer. I will say this, that I talked to a lot of players today and yesterday, but more to the point today, that just needed a break. They had no interest whatsoever in holding a golf club on Monday. They probably weren't going to show up at TPC Sawgrass until at least Tuesday. Some of them even told me Wednesday.
Isn't that a problem? I mean, this is the PGA Tour showcase event. This is I think arguably the 5th biggest tournament on the calendar in 2022, and you have guys who are protracting their practice schedules because this was too difficult of a test. That's a problem.
I mean, they're taking a mental health day. I have no problem whatsoever. But to your point, statistically, this golf course played a half stroke harder than the next most difficult golf course on the PGA Tour this season, and that was PGA National. So yes, it's a very difficult back-to-back stretch. And adding next week, I don't think it's going to be much easier. Although based on the forecast and your hometown, it's going to be a wet week. So maybe they will.
I'm not going to lie.
Yes, it doesn't look great.
It looks absolutely terrible Tuesday through Friday, which is going to make the scoring very good on the weekend.
Yeah, and so I think there might be a reprieve this week. Guys are talking about looking forward to going to Tampa just so they can exhale a little bit, make a couple birdies, relax a little bit. So no, and I don't think that's good for the tournament, to be honest. To your point, I think you're right when you say it's tricked up, that they don't have to do these things around the rough. They don't have to make the greens. The greens were already too crispy on Friday, and you know that happened. When that happens, it's going to be a red flag. And what's it going to be like on Sunday? And we saw something of a crapshoot coming down the stretch where Gary Woodland ends up with a plug lie, and suddenly there's no way he can get up and down. And I'm not saying that's not golf. I'm not saying there's not a place in golf for that. But you're right. I don't want to see this week in and week out. I just think
this is exactly what happens. This is exactly what happens at Bay Hill when Arnold Palmer was alive. This is exactly what he liked to see on the weekend. You look at Jack Nicklaus's Memorial Tournament. This is exactly what he liked to see on the weekend. Think back to John Rahm in 2020. Think back to John Rahm in 2020. He was one of the few players who finished that week under par. Jack Nicklaus was licking his lips at those conditions. This is exactly what Arnie liked to see. And it's not like they weren't rewarding good golf shots. You look at Scottie Scheffler, the winner on Sunday at the Arnold Palmer Invitational. He gained more than 2 shots on the field with his approach. That is where the tournament was decided. Scottie Scheffler was hitting quality golf shots that were still getting rewarded. It did not veer into the category of goofy golf, which we've occasionally seen at the U.S. Open. I thought this was a good, stern test, and the player who played the best on Sunday was the one who came out of that logjam.
It's close. All right, Haley says move on, so we have to move on to your boy Hovland. I called it a collapse. You recoiled. I kind of cringed, thought to myself, it may not have been a...
Gary Woodland finishing double and then bogey at the last was a collapse.
But let's talk short game. Like, that was awful. It was a terrible display. Sand saves for the week. 3 for 13 as a PGA Tour pro. He told me in the press interview that we just had with him, only 2 of those were plug lies. The rest of them weren't plug lies. That's a problem.
It is a problem, and I've kind of chuckled to myself over the past couple years because one of the familiar refrains on the TV broadcast is Victor Hovland. He knows his short game is a weakness, and he has been addressing it and working at it very hard. And I don't doubt that. He has been working at it very diligently, first with Pete Cowan and now with his swing coach, Jeff Smith. That does not mean that he is a good chipper and pitcher of the golf ball. He might be working very hard, but there is a wide gulf between what Victor Hovland is doing around the greens and just being a mediocre or pedestrian short game player on the PGA Tour. He is statistically one of the worst players on the PGA Tour around the greens. That's a problem. I mean, that is the reason why Victor Hovland, for his myriad gifts, and I think we can both agree he's one of the best ball strikers on the PGA Tour. You go watch him on the range, and it is absolutely a sight to behold. There is a reason why he has not yet finished in his young career inside the top 10 in a major championship or at the Players' Championship. It is because when it comes to a scramble fest, he is not going to prevail. It is a glaring weakness that I know we look at Collin Morikawa and say he is a very subpar putter. To me, this is a bigger weakness for Victor Hovland and is kind of his impediment to kind of accessing that next level in his career.
And he spoke truth to power about this on Saturday night when we asked him about the difficult conditions, and he admitted, this doesn't make sense to me. I usually don't play very well on golf courses where you need to scramble, where you're going to miss greens and you're going to have to count on your short game to get you
Which
through
is
the day.
That is a shocking admission from a world-class player.
But I think he understands what he's not, and I will give him credit on that. And I'll also give him credit. You're absolutely right. I mean, the dude is working hard, and I think he's getting to a point where there is a level of confidence that wasn't there before. But this should not have come as a huge surprise going into the final round when conditions were only more and more difficult. We saw it from everyone really except for Scottie Scheffler coming down the stretch. Well, and Hatton. I think Terrell Hatton was the only other one that really played well coming down the stretch. Gary Woodland, we just talked about. I mean, the short game just completely abandoned him coming down the stretch.
Yeah, Billy Horschel kind of got unlucky. He kind of got unlucky on 17 and then barely drew a line in the rough on 18. But yeah,
Billy Horschel couldn't do anything from off the green, whereas he'd been playing pretty well all week long. And this sort of segues to our next topic, which is on Rory. Rory on day one was brilliant. Didn't really have to depend on his short game because everything else was on point. And then he played terrible the rest of the way. My question to you is, going into the Players' Championship, where Rory has had success, what's your level of concern for him?
Concern, I wouldn't say he registers very high at all. I mean, he was 7 under on the round one and I think 8 over the rest of the tournament. These conditions are just not favorable to Rory's style of play. And it gives me an opportunity, Rex, to trot out one of my favorite stats of all time, which is Rory McIlroy has never won an event on the PGA Tour or on the European Tour, not called the DP World Tour, in which single digits under par won. He has never won a tournament at single digits under par. That is just not his style of play. If you want to get into a shootout, that stat
out today, weren't you? You were thinking to yourself, yeah, this could change.
No, if Rory wasn't going to win this golf tournament the way that he was striking it, he certainly could have. I think it was pretty clear early on that he was not going to. This is just not his style of play. You give him a shootout, you give him 12 to 16 under par. Yeah, Rory's our guy. But this sort of stress fest where you're really putting a lot of stress and strain on your short game, kind of like Hovland, that's not really his strong suit.
And I don't have zero would be my level of concern for Rory going to TPC Sawgrass, which will probably end up being
typical in the bag for Rory.
All the time. It's what I do. It's what I live for. I will say that because of the conditions, because of the forecast in your hometown, which is going to be awful, and we should all just blame you because it's totally your fault.
It's going to be very hot. It's going to be very hot on Monday. It's going to be record high 87 and then just really messy and sloppy Thursday, Friday, and then very cold.
And that's going to have and that has Rory written all over it. And I will still look at what Rory did here on Thursday. He just dismantled this golf course with his driver. And when he's playing well, we all know that's the weapon that he can take to any golf course. It's going to travel well when he can do the things that he did on Thursday. There's some short game issues, specifically putting. His putting was awful. He finished 53rd this week in strokes gained putting. And he just doesn't seem comfortable. He didn't seem comfortable on these greens. I don't know anyone who really
I believe Rory is number one in strokes gained putting entering this week, is he not? Is Rory not the number one putter on the PGA Tour this year in strokes gained putting?
I don't know. Are you telling me or are you asking me?
Oh, I'm telling you. Rory was the number one putter on the PGA Tour entering this week. Very small
Okay.
sample size.
Well,
very small sample
very
size.
small sample size. Because I think he has two
factual
tour starts
statement
before this.
A factual statement, nonetheless.
But when you struggle on greens like this, and as we get into the summer, that's probably going. I look ahead specifically to the PGA Championship, and that is going to be in Tulsa, and it's probably going to be hot. It's going to be steamy, and they're going to be very similar. Yes, although not as bad in May. I don't think so. I think what you end up with is not as bad, but you can still end up with conditions like we had this week. So yes, I think his putting. And it's always going to be suspect. I don't know that I'm ever going to look at Rory and be like, yes, I want him making the putt that's going to save my life, because I don't have that level of confidence with the putter in his hand. However, I do think the way he's driving the ball and the way he has played at TPC Sawgrass in the past, zero worries going in for him.
Would you put him, Rex, among your top 5 favorites next week for the Players?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we'll get into that on Wednesday. But yeah, I think where he's at right now, I think this was a good week actually for him reps-wise. He seemed to be in good spirits. You said 8 over the rest of the way after the first round.
Not great.
He was 8 over on the weekend. You can even take Friday out of the mix. He played even par on Friday, which wasn't terrible.
And Rory's going to have to go visit the equipment truck, since although they did not show it on the NBC broadcast, he did snap a wedge very cleanly, very precisely, very calmly. After a failed up and down, I think on the 13th hole today.
We all do it. We don't get them for free, but we all do it. You know the way it works out. All right, tomorrow night is Monday. I'm heading up to TPC Sawgrass. You're feeding me, right?
Yeah, we're gonna do it. I got the fridge stock. I got the fridge stock with beers. It's gonna be blazing hot. I'll make sure Lily did not have any bowel movements before you get there, so that way she's primed and ready to go for you.
All right, we'll see you next week.
That is my 6-month-old, by the way. That is not a full adult.
Yeah, thanks for putting that in there. Appreciate that. All right, we'll see you guys Wednesday. Thanks.